Hello everyone, welcome to another installment of The Sound of Bryn Mawr. I'm Dan. We are here in beautiful Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania today, and we are going to look at some of the finds I had from this summer. So, as the summer season recently has formally come to the end, and in one of my past videos I had sort of promised, right, that I would do this. I'm excited to share what all I found. I figured instead of, posting very often, I could more often dedicate the time to trying to hunt for things when I have free time, so then it can be more impactful. I can share more things when I do post. So this is kind of the extreme example of that. All the finds of the season, the vast majority of these were found by me in person, digging. If they were not, then I'll call that out if it's something I had to purchase online. Otherwise, everything that you see here is in a VG Plus or better condition. They all play perfect, and for the most part they're all going to be original pressings. So when people were doing this MoFi thing and all that stuff, I was already out there looking for the original pressings. We're still looking for the original pressings every chance we get. Not as many chances sometimes, but then sometimes there are more. So with the exception of the first record, which is out of order due to the design of its cover, I will show the records in order of genre, and then label, and then the album, and then we can talk about cases where there are multiple pressings of a given album. You'll notice that these finds tend to skew away from the 50s or 60s, hard bop, modal jazz. There is some of that, but trying to get also in other kinds of music, classic rock, some funk, things like that, which is something that I kind of set out to do at the beginning of the summer when I started to explore different kinds of music, both on labels that I did and did not know. So without further ado, let's get into it. The very first record for today is an original. This is a true first German pressing with that zipper in that way of the Rolling Stone Sticky Fingers, first German pressing, and you can see there, this pressing is not just your run-of-the-mill import pressing of a Rolling Stones album. This has TML in the dead wax, indicating that it was mastered by Doug Sachs at the mastering lab. For some reason, he mastered the German edition, but not any of the other editions, at least that I know of. And somehow one of these found its way into a record store in VG++ condition in Philadelphia. They put it on the wall, and when I went in there, it said first German pressing, but nobody knew what it was. And I got it for $60. So that was a very interesting find, because I have never actually seen one of these in person before. One time I tried to order it on Discogs about 2 years ago, and when I did, I ended up getting a 1977 EMI Electrola pressing instead, without TML in the dead wax. So one of the only unpleasant experiences on Discogs I've had. But this one, it is alive. It lives and breathes. I mean, it is as if they are playing live in your room, as the cliche goes, and really everybody knows about this album, but the clarity, the detail, the mastering choices, the stereo mix, all very, very nicely done. True. This is what audiophile records kind of aspire to be. This is an amazing find, especially for the price, and the only copy of this record I'll ever need. I had some other pressings, the early US pressing things, sold them. Now we're getting into alternative rock. I only got one alternative rock here. Don't pick these up very often unless something I know I like. This is an art punk album, I guess, for those of you who are aficionados, right? This is the first US pressing of The Wire, Pink Flag, with the warning text there. So this has some mild cursing in it by today's standards. When it came out, they put the warning there on the US version to indicate that, yeah, we like the album, but it's got some profane language on it. This one is on a US Harvest label. Again, this one's super clean, VG++. Just a little bit of paper scuffing. Some great tracks on here. Brazil, great track. Not really. When I first heard this a few months ago, it was like nothing I had ever heard before, and I'd been looking on it, seen a few reissue pressings around, but was waiting for a clean one to come along. And lo and behold, only a few weeks later, it shows up at a shop near me. So this is a great one to find and grab in such clean shape. And definitely an introduction that I'm still ingesting as I think about how to grow my punk library, to the extent that's something that I might want to do. The next one resulted from a trip to upstate New Jersey, where I found a treasure trove of blues. And in that treasure trove of blues, at a not too bad price, really not too bad at all, just the price of your regular reissue, I found this Jimmy Witherspoon Evening Blues. This is on the original Prestige label. This is a first pressing, and it's perfect. It's excellent condition, a VG++ condition, and it is still in the shrink. And this baby plays, and I think people know this record because Chad Kassem popularized it through the Acoustic Sound series. This record has T-Bone Walker as the sideman. This has got some good Arkansas jump blues on it. There's one about drinking beer here, which is a fairly hilarious song. Yeah, it's literally called Drink. Fairly hilarious song. Let's have a party, drink up lots of beer. So, very, very funny album. Very, very great, tasteful blues album. And who doesn't love some T-Bone Walker? Now, you guys, it was unavoidable. We made it, almost 6 minutes into the video. We're gonna see some jazz. I couldn't stop myself, right? So, just gonna show some original pressings. So, we got the unit structure, Cecil Taylor, this original mono on Blue Note. One of the first. I don't collect a lot of avant-garde. When I first started collecting records seriously as a main way of listening to music, I did want to look at avant-garde jazz because it's something I heard about in college, as one does. This is one of the albums that really came through for me as organic, convincing, something that you can listen to with somebody else who is not, ever even heard of avant-garde jazz, and it probably wouldn't be completely jarring for them. Very nice abstract take on post-bop that ventures into the free jazz realm by a very talented pianist, Cecil Taylor, and definitely a long-time one, the only copy I've ever owned. And same for this one, Herbie Hancock taken up with Dexter Gordon. They got the Watermelon Man on there. They got a few great tracks on there. And this is, again, first pressing. This one is a stereo, if memory serves. Yeah, there I was looking at it. Yeah, indeed, it is a stereo. Absolutely great. One day, there was a local record store where somebody had just brought in all these Blue Note first pressings that were in excellent or near mint condition. I do not exaggerate. And they were all like $40 or $50. That one was a little more. It was all $40 or $50. So got the first pressing of the Horace Silver Song for My Father, right? First pressing, which is there as well. We got first pressings, Midnight Blue. That's the other one, Midnight Blue, Kenny Burrell. Somebody had beat me to them. So there were a lot of other ones in there, like Search for the New Land, Lee Morgan, some Liberty albums, that sort of thing. But I didn't get any of those. So, that's going to have to wait for another summer, another time. Another one that I found, a completely different place, completely different context. I never really saw original Blue Notes, and within like a 4 or 5 week period, then there's just like 20 of them that show up in different places. So there I am, figuring, to purge my collection anyway, or I did. So there I am selling stuff, trying to, free up the cash to buy some more expensive records without sinking into my own wallet, per se. And there it was. I came across this Lee Morgan Sidewinder. I have a little focus. There we go, the focus in. The Lee Morgan Sidewinder. That's going to be an original mono. That's an original mono. I think 1964, right? This baby has not a scratch on it. Again, this one's probably, VG++. And, wow. I mean, if you know what Robert Ludwig hot mix is like for Led Zeppelin 2, that's what it is for that album when you hear Sidewinder. I mean, everybody's right there. And with a lot of those recordings, those Van Gelder recordings, I don't think it's essential to have a mono. I just happen to be finding a mono of it. If it was a stereo, I'd have been just as happy. But the historical context of it that's very interesting is in that mono was the main way that they were listening to music in the studio at that time, and the musicians were making decisions about how to play individually and together. So to hear it in mono somehow, maybe unconsciously, best reflects what the musician thought that they were producing. I don't want to say that they intended, because that's kind of, nonsense. But what they thought they were producing at the time is released. And so to have the mono is very interesting. And then there were two here where, I couldn't find originals, right? I mean, can't have it all, can't do it all. But, no complaints. Lee Morgan, Volume 3. This is a classic records pressing with the deep groove in it. This one's really nice. Just some very soft and sensitive playing in addition to the loud tracks. One I've been looking for a long time. And then Cool Strutting, Sonny Clark. This one is a mono, completely blows the Blue Note version out of the water there. Sorry to wait the screen. Blue Note version of the water there, and yeah, great record. Everybody's absolutely swinging so hard, and people all the time on the spot, they ask me, what are your top, whatever jazz albums? This one's top 5 every time. Top 5. Not just the pressing, but also the album. And that mono is a real nice one to have. Real crazy sounding record, mastered by Bernie Grumman. Still keeping on with the jazz. We got one Miles Davis here. That's a Columbia. This ESP. This is an early 70s press, which uses the CS price code, but has the 360 label. So as far as I understand with the Columbias, I mean, this got like Little One, some very nice songs in there. So with the Columbia, that's the one you wanna look for, is the 360 press in the early 70s, because they have a tube recording, but at that point they've really updated their gear. They're using what was at the time state-of-the-art solid state mastering. So a lot of the records that came out of Columbia in the late 60s on the 2i label, people say they kind of sound dull and lifeless, and yet to an extent I found that. Like, I had a 1967 pressing of ESP that I sold because it sounded like garbage. I think it sounded like a wax time, basically. This one is full light, full of air, full of clarity, and sounds the way you want a record to sound. So absolutely great, excellent condition. Then we start to get into some CTI. Rest in peace, Corey Taylor. Oh my lord. That was the first jazz album I ever owned. First one I ever owned was Stone Flower, Antonio Carlos Jobim. When I was a senior in high school, I bought that. Not really having any intention to get into jazz, but just playing Brazilian songs on the guitar, and I liked him, and so I bought that album. Interesting one. And anyway, later in it, they got into Kudu, which was some label that they did, I guess, to make funk music called Kudu. And I found some pressings of Idris Muhammad, The Power of Soul. This is a great album. So Power of Soul, the first track is a Jimi Hendrix, right? It's a little commercial in nature, From there, you get into Peace of Mind, which is great. And then on side 2, you have Lauren's Dance. There's one other song, but Lauren's Dance, that was a song that grows on you. It's like, how did I listen to this album the first 100 times? And I didn't understand it. The saddest thing, that's it. That's a real good one. So, the first so I found a few different pressings of this one, because it's just, it's become one of my favorites. Not just as jazz funk, not just as jazz, but just as a record to turn on and listen to. It can be whatever you need it to be. So this one is original. It's a white label promo of the Power of Soul album, and it's got the Van Gelder stampers. This album is mastered loud. There's a lot of punch on the drums. You have a healthy level of brightness to the horns, and any guitar you're going to hear on there, it will have the proper sort of hotness to it. Really great mastering and very well recorded by Van Gelder in the 1970s here. I think 1974 this came out. Also, at the same time, found a regular first pressing. So this one is a first pressing, confirmed. I could not, there are no pressing details on the record, like some of them are Pittman or something. This one, no pressing plant details on the record. But yeah, the white label promo does actually sound a little bit better, master a little louder, right? And that's what you expect. It's got like more well-defined grooves because those are the first pressings. But it was so cool to find this with the original cover. This is like that crate digging record, right? That's one of those classic covers that all the funk and hip hop people like to have too. So very cool to have it with the original cover. And also during digging, found a copy here which is still in the shrink wrap. This one is a little bit later. But yeah, I have a few copies of this, so over time I'll probably listen to them and figure out which is which. But cool that there are a few to reach for here, and great to have as not only a listening library but also as some cool collectible items of a new favorite record. That always, every time I see these on my shelf, it'll remind me, oh, you remember summer 2022? You found the Idris Muhammad, all that. So that was great. Okay. Now, we got Impulse. And Impulse, I did not do this on purpose, guys. But really, most of them are mono. I didn't do it on purpose. Again, it's just what I found. I didn't even know. Finding all these monos, and I looked them up, and then the price is like 6 times the price of the stereo one, so I'm saying to myself, why is it so? And then you realize, well, they held up better. The thing that I said about music decisions, they're kind of just rarer in a way. If they're scratched, then it's less likely the scratch will make noise, and if it does, then you can try a mono cartridge. But I digress. So we have the jazz message Art Blakey Quartet. This is a regular Jazz Messengers group. He's performing with McCoy Tyner here. Some soft tender playing. That's a clean copy of that. And they do some Coltrane on here. I think they do Summertime, like Coltrane did, but I think it's a Broadway tune, yeah. That was an early one to find in the summer. And again, right around the same time. Original mono. Impulse, Art Blakey, the Jazz Messengers. And this is one of those records that to me is just made of unobtainium, as they say on the internet forums. Because you just cannot find it, right? I mean, aside from this, I have never seen mono or stereo any version that was not good plus or worse. So to find this in a VG plus for the record itself, and the jacket is still VG in that it has a seam split, but you can't tell when it's in the sleeve. Super cool record. Impulse, they really doing a lot of polish. Sound. They're doing, paying the musicians more, doing more rehearsals probably than the Blue Note stuff. And he's because of that, this, also the way they recorded for Impulse, it was just a bit of a different experience. And so you could tell this one really does sound more polished than the Blue Note records. And it also came out just a little bit later than some of their most famous stuff. So it definitely sounds more polished than a lot of the Blue Note. And it's a very fun listening. Now another one is a record I had, but I only had it on the acoustic sounds, and when I got it on the acoustic sounds, it was warped, laughably so. So I said, well, I'll look, and I got this. It was $40, so that's not bad at all. This came out in 1962 originally. It's a Coltrane live at the Village Vanguard. This is a 1963 mono pressing. This one I think actually was, a lot of times they think stereo records, right? Live performances, you want to convey the atmosphere, the soundstage. I think this was made off an FM broadcast. No, that was Birdland, I'm sorry. This was not made off an FM broadcast. I have a 1968 stereo as well. Acoustic sound stereo. They're very nice, but this has a lot of direction to it. And as they say in kind of the liner notes on this one, on Chasing the Train is kind of like a man going for broke. Like they just made the whole thing up on the spot. And there's kind of an extreme sensory experience to hear that in mono. Very nice. And my preferred listening copy of the record. Similarly, this one was off an FM broadcast. It says beautifully recorded on the back. It probably was, but it was off an FM broadcast, at least as far as I read. The Coltrane live at Birdland. The drums on this mono pressing are insane. This is a first pressing. I mean, they have Alabama on here as well. That's a great song. And you got really a few others. What are the Promise is great. Afro Blue. This is probably, this is the definitive rendition of Afro Blue on this. So you gotta have this one. And I mean, imagine if you were on the stage at Birdland. I mean, could you look like that? Only John Coltrane could look like that, playing on stage at Birdland. I mean, look at the guy. So that's amazing. Absolutely great. And the other one's also another John Coltrane record with him playing a soprano saxophone on the front, and that's John Coltrane Impressions. Okay, I've had a very clean stereo pressing of this, and it was groove distorted at the very end of side 2, and I am very disappointed to report that the mono pressing is the same way, and I think they're just all that way. I really don't care, but I thought it was very interesting insight anyway, and not something you would necessarily read. So I don't know if that helps anyone, but I mean, Impressions on here, India on here, the song India. What is it called? Is that Welcome on here? The last one, After the Rain. That's what it is. Now Welcome is from Cool. This is from Cool Say Mama. After the Rain, right? These are some of the they do improv. They do modal. They do post bop. They do soft, sensitive playing. They go really hard and very emotionally intense. The group shows off all of their artistic versatility across all the subgenres of jazz. Beautifully recorded, very virtuosic. In the early part of becoming obsessed with John Coltrane, it was probably my favorite John Coltrane record. And wow, to have the original mono, got some good punch in it. Really like that one. And it is less noisy. Every stereo I've seen, it does have a little bit of noise in it. You know, and this one, it's not as bad, you know, but it's still definitely a VG Plus with only very, very light crackle for a few revolutions in about the last 10 seconds of the record. Otherwise, I would say, perfect. Okay, next one here. We got, yeah, I don't think I missed any, right? I didn't miss any. This one is the first one that I'm going to show you today, which I had to find online because it's just, I wasn't going to wait around and find it in person. So this one right here is the Love Supreme by John Coltrane. I have the OG, right, stereo. This is a 1968 stereo because the OG stereo is very heavily panned. And you're hearing the drums in one speaker, you're hearing the saxophone in the other speaker, the bass kind of is in one speaker, so then it basically isn't there if you're standing on one side of the room because all you hear is the saxophone on the... You get my point. So this one is a John Coltrane Love Supreme. It's a 1968 stereo. Because 3 years later, I guess somebody figured out how to properly channel stereo. So then Van Gelder started doing it. You know, and it's beautiful. As you say, it's VG Plus just because it's slightly cupped, if you will, but it doesn't affect play. Absolutely great copy, and it offers a compromise between the pin drop clarity of the recent audiophile pressing with the emotional rawness and unrefined grit of the original pressing. The spiritual awakening that's so rawly revealed on that pressing. This is somehow a compromise between them. I strongly recommend it. And it's also going to be a compromise between them in price as well. So if you can have one copy and you don't mind the label, I don't mind the label. I mean, they're beautiful. So get this one, 1968 stereo, John Coltrane. Now, if money's no object, apparently you can get the mono. And that's like a bucket list item for me, is if you can get the John Coltrane Love Supreme mono, the original one, again, then there's none of this panning, right? That's how they heard it in the studio when it was recorded. That'd be really cool. But the circumstances would have to align to get it, because otherwise it's just untenable. So, I think it's our last impulse for the day. Yeah, back to another in-person one. Yeah, so this more in-person find. So got the Pharoah Sanders Karma right here. Rest in peace to my man. This one. I mean, because I've had Taweed for a long time. Karma, I had heard it, but it's like, how are you going to find the record? So I was at a record store again near New York City, and they had some records they put up on the wall. And one of them was a Pharoah Sanders Karma. And it had some stickers on it that somebody had put on it. It had all this disgusting adhesive. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, I think I can clean it off. If the record's clean, it's probably a good price for what it is, because they're marking it down a lot because they think the jacket is like good plus, right? You can see one place that adhesive was... But anyway, the record, it's a first pressing. The record is basically perfect. There are 3 revolutions at the beginning of side 2 where the record goes... And then it's lady screaming and the music starts. So I strongly recommend this one. This is a true spiritual experience on impulse. And the creator has a master plan, guys. I mean, no introduction required. This is one of those jazz albums, again, that people probably don't know jazz. They're music heads. They know it. Just great work of spiritual jazz that's accessible to all. And soon, it's really going to be accessible to all because it's going to be on acoustic sounds. And boy, does that original pressing sound great, too. We've got Steely Dan Asia, Mobile Fidelity. This is one where, I wanted to see for myself, what is the Mobile Fidelity like on this copy. I think a lot of the Stan Ricker, the 80s Mobile Fidelities, they tend to be underrated. I don't make a habit out of collecting any Mobile Fidelity, but there are certain ones you want to have. Controversial opinions about them. The Steely Dan Asia, I mean, you could probably find an original pressing for a lot cheaper, and I would say the original pressing is the original pressing is probably at par with the Mobile Fidelity. They're very different. The original pressing is going to have a lot more bass, very goosed up in the low end. The Mobile Fidelity very very goosed up in the mids and the high end. I find it has a bit of like a cellophane wrapped pop quality to it that the original Bernie Grundman doesn't. All a matter of preference. But in any case, I won't be buying the UHQR, so there's that. got a Beatles 1970. Somebody who really liked coffee, but really took care of the record. Good upgrade pressing from the anniversary copy. It's in stereo, a lot more clarity and a lot louder, just like we come to expect right from those older UK pressings. This one, I don't know what the YouTube policies are on this, but this is like a second or third UK pressing of Jimi Hendrix Electric Ladyland, and it's got a different cover than the US cover. And it also sounds different than the US version. If you see this one and you get to pick it up, I'd recommend it because it's gonna blow the George Marino version that you can get at Big Box out of the water. So check that one out on the red Polydor label. All right, yeah, we're getting into classic rock now. I mean, yeah, we're getting into those rock records. So keep it on with the in person. I found this record. I thought it was very interesting because it was $25. I found it at a record store that's a little bit of a drive from me, but it's still like within my area. You know, I've been looking because I realized with Led Zeppelin, it's like, well, I had the 1972 crossover pressing. I still have that, but Led Zeppelin's one of those bands where, at least for me, you want to go all out. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, well, you're finding original pressing. Right, U.S. pressing, something that sounds really good by one of those renowned mastering engineers. I'm thinking, why don't I go on Discogs and I'll look through all the different pressings of Led Zeppelin 1 and figure out, you know, by looking at reviews and by judgment calls, cross-referencing against YouTube and readings elsewhere, and, you know, just what do I think is the best. So what it came down to is that, well, you want to look for an original Spanish version. If you find a U.S. first pressing, that's okay, but if you find a German strawberry pressing, you're doing really well. And this is outside of the UK. Outside of the UK, you find an early 70s second or third US pressing from Monarch or Presswell that was mastered by George Pierce on both sides. And I found this one in excellent condition for $25 at a record store. And as I purchased the record, I complete the trans. Oh wow. I got a chance to listen to it there. It was very loud, you know, really rocking in a way that the UK is not. But it doesn't sound unpleasantly distorted. Although you can tell, right? Like Glyn Johns was the engineer on this, like a lot of the greatest rock records, and they put a lot of sounds on this record that people had never heard before. And whenever I talk to people, you know, that were around when Led Zeppelin started, I've heard a disproportionate number of people, and this is just anecdotal, but I've heard a disproportionate number of people say that Led Zeppelin 1 was their favorite album. Because when they first heard that, there were sounds on that record, like the industrial sounds on that record, that they had never heard, the fuzz, that they had never heard on any record before. And that is so well conveyed on this pressing, to have that loudness, to have that clarity. It absolutely explodes out of the speakers, but does it in such a controlled way. This record is dynamite. And with the ATGP. This is from 1972 at Presswell. And about 2 days before I found that, I ordered a near mint one from Monarch that was still in the shrink from 1974 on Discogs. So then that shows up and I've got two. So this is a Monarch which is still in the shrink. And they pretty much sound exactly the same. There it is, Led Zeppelin 1 in the shrink wrap. So, Led Zeppelin 1, as far as I'm concerned, for the moment, I'm set. Maybe later I'll come back, right? Because I know I said this before. Maybe later I'll come back, I'll look for the promo, I'll look for the turquoise letter one, I'll look for the German strawberry pressing, right? Just different pressings, but for now I'm set. Led Zeppelin 2, similarly, I had the RL. I still have the RL, but there's another one I wanted to have because you don't want to play the RL every time. You know, if I scratch it, that's a detriment. So I want to find an ATGP, and I was going to be patient because there was no urgency. So after about 8 months of looking for an ATGP, just casually, I found one, 1977 ATGP, because I had one before, sold it to find a Black Sabbath record. So found it. There it is, and it sounds probably 90% as good as the RL, but the hotness on the vocals, the detail on the drums is not there. Although the presence of the bass is actually a little better than on the RL. And the fact that it's that much cheaper and anything about it at all is better really says something. Alright. Moving along. We got the Super Disc version of the Allman Brothers live at Fillmore East. Wow, it's the best version of Fillmore East I really have ever heard. Look no further than this pressing. If you're thinking about getting some MoFi or some pink cap, I mean, I can't recommend against the pink cap, but just get this. Like, honestly, just get this one. It has all the good things about the other ones, and it's even better. And it has a live sound. They did the stereo imaging and sound staging really well. It's got all the hotness of the original plus clarity, right? That's what I'm looking for on the best pressings, and it's half-speed mastering done right. It's half-speed done right. This here is a Blondie Parallel Lines Gold Stamp promo. We got the original master recording of the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon. I have this, the Kevin Gray plus Doug Sachs 25th anniversary German edition, right? And the Bernie Grundman. Of all of them, I think this is the best. Never heard an A2B2 or A3B3, right? But from what I can tell, this has on the high end what the Kevin Gray doesn't. The Kevin Gray has a bit more on the low end. It's still there on this one. I'm sure if you had the right gear, you could boost it up. So for me, this is the best pressing that I have as well. Just on the clarity, on the high end, the newer tapes, the crankability, right? But not it's I guess again compared to the Kevin Gray, I think it wins. But both of them are lacking in different ways compared to an A2B2 or A3B3. If you ask people on the internet, so again, don't know personally, but again, great find, another in-person find, super cool. This next find was completely unexpected. This is something that I did not even have want listed, or was not even looking for because I thought it was so unlikely that I would ever find it. At the same time as I found that Jimmy Witherspoon Evening Blues that was in the shrink that I showed you earlier. I'm just digging through these records on the floor, just in this box somewhere on the floor that's like covered up on the under buckets, and I see it has a section that says audiophile, and there I go digging through it. I'm like probably 3 hours away from where I live, and I'm like, holy cow! So it's audiophile. I'm seeing like Earth, Wind, and Fire, and he has like T for the Tillerman. I'm like, okay, And then I pull this, and it's like a third of the typical price. This is the Pink Floyd "Wish You Were Here" half-speed master with the second matrix code, and it's stickered as well. It's an original jacket that got stickered with the HC 43453. I think that's what it is. HC 43453, and this is a half-speed master version of this record, which is honestly a bit muted compared to the others, but that is, and so I think my listening copy is still going to be the second Japanese pressing, but this does have better high end, and in certain parts of the album it does have monster bass, although the sound on this is not as consistent track to track as you would think. So collection wise, it's so cool to have one this clean. It's the cleanest copy of this record that I own. Sonically, it doesn't always rock as much as I would think. For those who have heard it, I'm very interested to know if it actually sounds any different than the Japanese master sound. No, by all means, a great record. Don't get me wrong. If I pick a random record, use that random feature on Discogs, pick a random record, I'm listening to that. Okay, and then you got another. This isn't a Mobile Fidelity ad, guys. These are all from the '80s. There are like 3 of them in here. They just all happen to be close to each other because of the labels that they're on. Because we're looking at rock. We got Pink Floyd records, and then we got RCA. Is I'll just. So then we got the David Bowie Ziggy Stardust. Not as much detail on the guitar, but more bass, better detail on the vocal. Overall, better listening experience than the new half-speed master that I did a separate video about. My preferred copy of this album. And so this is one of the 3 copies of this album that are from like the Holy Trinity, as they say. So, like the Green Label Bilbo pressing on RCA International. This one, an original UK pressing. I'm satisfied with this one. I'm not a big enough Bowie fan to chase multiple pressings of the album, so that ends the story with that phenomenal album. We also got the Trout Replica. I talked about this record before. I have a better quality sound pressing, David Shepard mastered. This is an early U.S. issue with the Reprise Steamboat label, I think from 1977. It's got the Warner insignia on the label as well. Sounds super good, beautiful sounding. Now we're getting to Velvet Underground. So I classify it under Verve, even though not all the records are Verve, and probably one of my top 5 records. I've been looking for this for a long time. Okay, I never found it. And I looked very aggressively for this, and then they started flowing in. So here's what happened, guys. What happened is that early in the summer, I was like, wow, I've been out doing this record hunting. You know, I've been digging. I've never seen a copy of this loaded. What pressing should I get? So I go on the Discog, forums and all of this, and I see people saying, well, you want to get the 1977 specialty pressing because it's like the older ones and it uses basically the same matrix numbers except it's a C instead of a B, and it's got better pressing quality, and specialty from 1970 to 1977, that can mean a lot. So I said, well, the others are more expensive on the internet, at least on Discogs. So I did it, and I got what was a museum copy from a dude who's selling his entire record collection. This is online. Got this museum copy, right? I'll never grade his near mint unless it's in the shrink. Basically. So this is excellent condition to me. Wow. I was blown away by the sound of this. Maybe not necessarily the loudest, but crankable, full of detail, full of dynamics, great stereo presence. Wow. Right? And I said, I'm pretty obsessed with this record. And how many pressings of this record I find, well, I'm obsessed with it. So if they're in good condition, I'm going to buy them. And so that's what I did. I shortly after found this, which is not an OG. It has the 75 rock address on the label, which would indicate that it's from 1974. But it uses the original Presswell matrix, which has PRP in the runouts. Every pressing plant that did this, they had slightly different matrix codes. But this one used a PRP instead of PR on the first round of Presswell pressings. In later rounds, they dropped the P, the second P. So this is using the metalwork of the original pressings with the 75 rock address of the 1974 pressings. So shares the same sound as the original, and that one was noticeably tubier and noticeably louder than the 1977 one. For what it's worth, it sounded more analog, as one would traditionally say. I also found what we have here is a 1974 Presswell pressing still in the shrink, using the Presswell second pressing matrices, and that one also has excellent clarity. It sounds a lot like the 1977 version, maybe a little louder. Both of those Presswell pressings have the B as the suffix on both sides of the runout, so not completely a first pressing, but still one of the first. And then I was like, well, I got loaded. I'm set. And then I was searching around, and as I said, if I see it and it's loaded, and it's not an exact pressing that I already have, I'm going to go bananas. So I see that they have a copy of Loaded, and at a local record store, and it says 1841 Broadway, and it's like, well, all the copies I have the 75 rock address on them. So I was like, well, maybe it's not that different. Maybe the matrix number is the same. So if it's something different, then maybe I'll take it home. And it was $60, right? $60. So not cheap, but even for regular pressings of Loaded, not very expensive. And I open it up. And not just do I see that it's an 1841 Broadway, I see that it's a white label promo from Specialty Pressings with the Al Brown mastering and the A suffix on the dead wax in both sides. Wow. This has been one of the ultimate finds of 2022. It just has a bit more loudness, bit more clarity, bit more definition. There's some place where somebody's ripping off the promo sticker, so the cover's kind of a VG, but the record is a solid VG plus with a number of hairlines on both sides that don't affect play in any appreciable way. And it's a great way to hear Sweet Nothing, Train Coming Round the Bend, Who Loves the Sun, all the best songs, which are all found on Loaded. Wow. So we got the 4 loaded pressings there. We got the 4 loaded. There, loaded. Okay? Now rounding things out, again, more classic rock. Sometimes I do, data analyses on my record collection to try to determine what is missing. And because eventually you have, I got to a point where you have more than 300 records. It gets jarring to look at them all. And so if there is some way for me to analytically determine what it is that I don't have, that I want, that I could benefit from having, then that would be helpful. So I won't get into the details, but the point is I recognize through this that I could get more Black Sabbath, that I would really benefit from having better pressings of Black Sabbath records. And so I really spent a lot of time in August, late July and throughout August chasing these Black Sabbath records. We got the Black Sabbath red pressing. That's an Abbey Road mastering off a digital file. Sounds great. But it does not compare to this 1970 original, which was recorded during the Summer of Love. It's still in the shrink. This one is Pittman. I think it's a Pittman, yeah. And Wicked World. You don't want the... I was thinking, should I get the UK... You don't want the UK pressing because the UK pressing doesn't have Wicked World on it. So if you get a first US in the shrink, wow, it's so loud, it sounds great, you're going to be happy. This is so nice. Absolute metal rock, hard rock classic. Same situation for this one here, that Paranoid. Paranoid, I'll say, was the hardest Black Sabbath record to find a clean copy of. Because I would find so many pressings that would just have, it would be all perfect after you vacuum clean it. And there would be scratches all over the thing. All other parts of the record. Oh, perfect. Plays perfect. Then you get to Planet Caravan, and it has like no scratches on it, and the thing sounds terrible. You clean it 5 times, it doesn't matter. So the thing is that it took me about 6 pressings of Black Sabbath to be able to combine them into a single set, which had a clean enough jacket and record in order for me to say that it was VG+. And that was well worth it, in my estimation. This is a Black Sabbath Paranoid, and that is a true U.S. first pressing with the Iommi Ward credits on a single line in the Warner Brothers green label. And Planet Caravan, it happens to be my favorite song from this, and to have the raw, fuzzy sound that is on the original press of Planet Caravan, very nice. Very nice. This is really their bluesiest album, I think. And then there's also the quality record pressings 2-disc set there, which is a cool copy. Sounds awesome. Master Reality. It's the 3rd Black Sabbath album. I found by simply digging a 2001 UK Castle reissue in VG Plus shape. That one sounds very nice. It sounds better than just like the regular in-print reissues, and it rivals some early pressings. It rivals some of the early pressings. It really does. Let's see. 2011. I got the poster from this. I hung it on my wall. It came with the poster. This is a 2011 version, mastered by Ron McMaster. Probably it's better than the version of Black Sabbath self-titled that he did as part of this series. And I really enjoy this one. Again, like the other reissues from this series, it sounds very audiophile. It's mastered almost like jazz or classical music to an extent. So you kind of have to mess with the levels a little bit, but you can get it to sound good. And if you don't mess with the levels, it's still perfectly listenable. Great experience on super quiet vinyl. So that was probably like that 2011 is like my number 4 The 2001 Castle is my number 3. My number 2 is a UK. This one I had to find online. It's a UK second pressing. This is a second UK pressing with the spaceship label and the original matrix codes of the first pressing. So this one, it has the same clarity that the Ron McMaster has. It has more detail than the Ron McMaster or the 2001 UK Castle, and it slaps harder, if you will, than any of those in terms of the bass, in terms of the drums. It just sounds, I don't know how to describe it though. It just sounds, it doesn't sound like metal music. It just sounds kind of off. The way that it did it in the stereo, it sounds kind of off. And for me, I preferred the very brusque presentation and very in-your-face presentation of the US copy. And having tried multiple US copies, I can say with confidence that the US copy that offers the most loudness, the most detail, and easily beats the UK pressing is this original pressing of Black Sabbath Master Reality. It's a Terre Haute pressing. This one still has the original poster in it, and it says it's denoted by P1971 at the bottom of the label. That's the unique identifier for this particular original pressing of Black Sabbath. I would search no further than this. When you listen to this pressing, you will hear Tony Iommi's string fingers as he moves them up and down the strings of the guitar. You will hear the 3D quality of Ozzy Osbourne's voice. There is a true soundstage, true detail, a certain organic quality to the record, and it's loud. If at the same volume, it's louder than anything else I showed here. This is the one you want, and it's one of the best sounding rock records I own. Next is Vol 4. Vol 4 was a little simpler. Got a first US. Beautiful. And I got the Chris Bellman edition here. Also great. I did not have to. Yeah, these are both in-person finds. They're both in an excellent condition. This is one where I actually thought the Chris Bellman sounded a little better. The original copy, I don't know, it sounded a little muffled or a little bit muddy. But the Chris Bellman was just nasty the way the original copy was. But it was also polite in ways the original copy was not, and I like that. I thought it was very good. I recommend that one. Yeah, I don't like to waste people's time, okay? So don't waste your time with the original pressing, okay? And then we get some Grateful Dead. And then you say, oh, what Grateful Dead show and all that. I sold all the box sets because I think that stuff's boring, basically. But the Europe 72 original pressing, I mean, that's a classic. Three disc set, Europe 72 original pressing. Can't beat it. And then this one, the Live Dead on the Warner Brothers 7 Arts label. Great copy of that record, and really sounded a lot better than the reissues in terms of the sound stage, air around the musicians, the loudness, the condition of the tape when it was made. You could tell that as well. Very glad to have those both. Turn on your love light on that, and it's good. With Live Dead and Europe 72, it's one of these things where Europe 72, like at that point, they had their repertoire down. They knew what they were doing. They had a sound. It was incredibly well recorded. Live Dead, it's recorded okay. Their repertoire isn't quite as down, isn't quite as definitive yet, but the musicians are playing better. Overall, this captured them at the right time, and this did too. But this did even more so, I think, in a way. And rounding it out, we started with heaters. We've been doing heaters the whole time, and how are we going to end it with some heaters? So we got the Funkadelic Maggot Brain. On the Westbound label. This is like a second or third US pressing in excellent condition. P-Funk, right? Absolutely amazing sound. And then this is a Tracy Chapman. I think this is a specialty. Yeah, it's a specialty. The first pressing, it's a specialty. This one is done all digitally, but it was a direct metal mastering. And these master disc or direct metal mastering, I think it was Direct Metal Master by Master Disc, right? Yeah. Master Disc DMM pressings from the 80s. I haven't met one that I don't like. This is a great sounding version of this record. If you can't get the European Quiex, keep your eyes out for this, guys. And that's what we have today. 51 minutes later, here we are. This has been a summer of great memories, traveling around, finding awesome records to bring back and clean up with this VPI here and take into the collection. I hope you've all enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments, right? What are the records that you see here? What should I look for next? What is it that you're looking for that you have found? And I look forward to sharing more about some of my finds from early in the fall season, as well as what I'm still looking for. So thank you so much for your time, for watching. We'll be back soon. Thank you.